I looked in vain today for a verse in the Bible about tidying cupboards, but apparently there's not much in the scripture that refers directly to the cupboard space we might have in our homes. I know that some of you in lockdown have been using it as an opportunity for a sort of huge spring clean. For some of you, that means your cupboards are rammed full because you've put things away from being out and you've kept them because you're basically a bit of a hoarder, and so you're in a rainy day mode. We haven't used this for 4 years, but we may one day, so you put it away. For others of you, you've used it as a genuine clean out from the attic, from the loft, from cupboards. I know because here in our community, we've got things outside people's homes with signs which say, help yourself, as people have cleared out the stuff and charity shops have been closed, they've got nowhere to take it. So we're thinking about grasping the opportunity and doing the right thing. So tidying up, getting the house clean because we've been locked down, and so gardens have rarely been tidier and more well kept in many cases. Homes have rarely been tidier in some cases. So we've grasped the opportunity. But what about the opportunity for the church as we come out of lockdown more and more? What will it look like for us, and how will we make sure that we don't miss out on this amazing opportunity to do things in a different way and to clear out some of the junk? Well, there's a great verse in Colossians about grasping every opportunity. It's in Colossians chapter 4. And it's in verse 5. So it's a great section, actually, practical instruction. You should devote yourself to prayer. You should pray that the good news of Jesus will spread around the world. Verse 3, you should pray for, Paul says, pray for him, pray for Christian workers, missionaries, leaders, aid agency workers, and so on. Pray for people. Be wise in the way you act towards outsiders, because you want to make sure that you don't discredit the good news by your behaviour. We know that hypocrisy is the thing that puts people off Christian faith, perhaps the most of all. So be wise. And it says this in verse 5 of chapter 4. Make the most of every opportunity. And some of you will remember from the film The Dead Poets Society, Robin Williams teaching away, saying, Carpe diem, seize the day. Now, this is the time to grasp this and do something about it. Not just in your home, but in the church. So when we go back to church, there will be a tendency to focus on the practical, the church building, I mean. You'll be pressurised by the denomination you're part of if they issue directions to churches, or fastidious people in your own church. They'll be all about disinfecting the premises, which will be a bit odd when you consider that for most of our churches they've been completely empty for 3 months, and so any human-related virus is long since dead. But anyway, leaving aside the irrationality of that, we're going to deep clean our churches, run the taps so the water hasn't been sitting in pipes, and flush the loos, and whatever else we're supposed to do practically. Maybe start to provide, hand sanitizers at the door of the church. We're going to be so clean hands in our churches, one could wish our hearts were as clean as our hands are going to be. But it's not that opportunity I'm thinking about. It's an opportunity to rethink what the church is going to look like. How will we move forward when we're in a hybrid situation of having to do some things on the internet still for people who are a little afraid to gather, even though we have permission to gather when that happens? How are we going to make our internet presence as good and clear as it can be, because we're certainly going to need to continue to do that. But how can we make our gatherings as creative, as fresh, as relevant as they need to be? And how can we make sure that the needs of the world, which will be quite different from the BC world, I'm not talking about before Christ, I'm talking about before Corona, how can this transition to a new world be met by the church? Going to be huge unemployment perhaps in your community. How will you meet the needs of people who feel worthless and unable to provide for their families? How will you help the tsunami of mental health issues that will be around in your community, brought on by lockdown, or people feeling nervous and afraid of going out They'll have spent so much time socially distancing from people, they'll feel even more isolated a year from now. So we should emphasise physical distancing in the short term, but not social distancing. We're going to need people to have good relationships for their own mental health, for their well-being, and the well-being of society as a whole. So this is the time. Grasp every opportunity. Yes, have a clear out in your house if you want to. Yes, get things sorted out personally, of course. But as a church now, this is the time as we emerge from containment and confinement to say, God, what should we be doing differently now? And grasp the opportunity for a fresh expression of church life for all of us, meeting the needs of our community in ever more relevant ways, inspired by the Spirit of God and our faith in Jesus Christ.